Thank you for the opening remarks. I'm delighted to take a little liberty to welcome also, if I may, all of the young persons who have joined us. I am delighted. We are delighted to have you, and on behalf of the council, all its heads of churches and officers welcome you, and we are hoping that you will have a fabulous evening this evening. Let me use the opportunity to present our keynote speaker, a very well-known person, but an introduction is quite in order. Dr. Leahcim Semaj knew he had a special gift for sharing information when he won the Distinguished Teacher Award at Cornell University. With a unique ability to impact persons at all levels of education and competence, Dr. Semaj creates a participatory environment that keeps the audience fully engaged. This quantum transformation psychologist combines ancient wisdom with contemporary levity and brings fresh insight to old human problems. He is a frequent presenter and facilitator for change management, leadership training, strategic planning retreats, organizational restructuring, cultural and work values alignment, corporate coaching, and demystifying complex concepts that impact people's lives. The Jamaica Employers Federation has recognized Dr. Semaj for leadership in innovating workplace practices. He is has, he's been a postdoctoral fellow from Educational Testing Service, Princeton, New Jersey. He holds a PhD and MSc from Rutgers University, Bachelor of Arts cum laude from the City College of New York, and a graduate of Kingston College. I wonder where that is. Research and teaching has included Cornell University, Rutgers University, University of the West Indies, and the College of Agriculture. I am delighted, friends, young persons, youth, everyone, to introduce and to present to all of us this distinguished Jamaican, erudite, excellent communicator, and I'm sure will have an impact, he will provide us with an impactful experience, Dr. Leahcim Semaj. Let's welcome and receive him. Over to you, Dr. Semaj.
Well, thank you all very much. It is indeed a pleasure to share with this group a very topical situation, and I really hope that we'll all get something constructive out of this. All right, let me just share my screen so that we can cover a lot more ground. The subtitle I'm using for our engagement this evening is "Mind in Your Mind." In Jamaican, talk about your mind. You mind something, you take care of it. Mind in your mind, critical aspect of our being. Yes, I'm a quantum transformational psychologist. What I mean by that, I combine a number of areas. Psychology as we all know it, neuroscience because we're getting a lot more information now in terms of what the brain does, quantum physics, and most of all the science of spirituality. So I think this mix will come in very useful tonight. Now, the three phases to what we might talk about: mental health and well-being in general. Look at the connection with crime, and then look at mental health in terms of coping with grief and loss, so we can see how best we can help ourselves. Our timing for this is extremely, well, some people will say it's serendipity, some people will say it is synchronistic destiny. When within just week, the person who is really on many people's mind, Miss Biles, just followed by Osaka, where two athletes, the top of their game, decide to step aside because of mental health issues. And the way many people have come down on them, you're getting paid for it, you should suck it up. You're an embarrassment to us. But a lot of major publications and many thinkers have come out and said, thank you, ladies. Do you realize how many people have been suffering in silence over the years because of mental health issues that they were afraid to go public with? Well, mental health in general, your general state of well-being and state of mind, you have to look after it. If it is interruptive, it is disruptive, it creates a lot of problem. So generally that's what we're talking about. Now we understand that mental it's important to you. The feelings, the influence, our psychological health, our physical health, all components, and it is real. What it is not for sure is not a sign of weakness. It's not just something negative. So that we really have to make time to start talking about this. If you ignore this process of mental health, you have some serious problems. It will impact the way you work, the way you live, whether you eat or not, how you care for yourself. Every aspect of your being will be impacted. I like to talk about the physics of life. Life comes at you as a series of sine waves. You know, sine waves go up and down and up and down. But it's your job to turn the sine wave into a positive linear trend, meaning taking it constantly up. Yes, you're going to have the downs. It's your job to pull it back up. Very important. Also, I'd like to remind you all that, guess what? We have a very important situation looking at our lives. We can look and see that you are the programmer. Your brain is the hardware. Your mind is the software. Your life is the printout. You are the programmer. So you have a responsibility in terms of what you do with this thing. Mind controls body. So we can't get around that. Thoughts are the language of the mind, but feelings are the language of the body. So we have to work with both of these in terms of as we negotiate life. But for your best self, we're combining body, mind, and spirit. And all must be taken care of. All three components of our being. A very interesting quote from Albert Einstein says that everything is energy. That's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. What do you want? What do you want? How do you go about it? We know some things now. Latest research tells us that we can change the brain and the body through thoughts alone. We can make our thoughts more real than anything else. You can change who you are from brain cell to gene, given the right understanding. So our thoughts, our mind, what you metabolize, what you take in, transform you. So be careful of all the unintended thoughts that take root in your mind. They can easily grow like weeds and take you places that you did not consciously desire. Mind your mind. Where mind leads, body follows. Our minds are capable of anything you wish to achieve. It's our minds we have to convince. The body will just follow and get us there. You know, we frequently hear about this thing called the placebo effect. The placebo. Very misunderstood concept. 50% of the effectiveness of all drugs are due to placebo. Sometimes up to 80%. So we can't dismiss it. Every study of any therapeutic drug, the placebo group, the group that got nothing, that got the sugar pill, they also got better. So it's telling us something that belief is a powerful, powerful thing, one way or the other. So by that, what we now know that what? Mind heals body. So whatever the situation, I encourage people, believe the diagnosis, but not the prognosis. Beliefs tend to determine outcome. There are many, many components that is happening. I would love to discuss this later on. Anybody who doubts this. Yes, accept the diagnosis, but not the prognosis, because we can do something about it. We know that healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. What it means, the damage no longer controls your life. So the path toward healing, mental healing, physical healing, spiritual healing, is indeed quite real. We talk about Jesus healing. What does it really mean that you're healed? Well, healing is not the same thing as curing. The stories tell us that Jesus healed people. We have no idea if he cured them. And it doesn't matter, because that's not the point. He healed them. What did healing? Is a natural process that moves us from dis-ease to wellness. And we are able to facilitate this. I like to remind people also that the trillions of cells of your body are constantly eavesdropping on all your thoughts and emotions. Just think of it. You can demonstrate this anytime. Something happens that frightens you, you immediately respond at the cellular level. So what kind of thoughts are you programming yourself with? We also know about something called the law of attraction. What you think, you become. What you think, you become. We can make our lives miserable. Then when you get to the words we use, words. Sometimes we have the saying in Jamaica, but sticks and stones can break my bones, but words are just wind. Not true, folks. Knives and guns leave traces. Slaps and punches leave bruises. Bombs shake buildings and streets and leave empty spaces. But the word can strike without ever leaving the pages. Driven by a healthy mind, the word is unequal in the power of creation. The ignorant can be informed. Lives can be transformed.
You're muted, Dr. Semaj.
I just noticed that, yes, So we have work to do, folks. We have serious work to do. Now, again, this mind-body connection, there's a function in the brain called the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system is like your own personal secretary. What it does, anything you tell yourself that's important, it either brings it to you or you to it. Common example that, you're in a room and there's a mother with a young child next door. She hears the child cry, but nobody else does, because that's important to her. So the things you tell your mind is important to you. It brings it to you or you to it. We also know of the concept of cognitive reappraisal, where you can reset a negative situation by changing the meaning of it. Amygdala, the area of the brain associated with fear and anxiety, immediately responds to the motivation and energizes you just by you changing the meaning of a word. So it's how we nowadays, we don't talk about problems, we talk about opportunities. Very important way to rephrase things, how the mind can give you what you need. So what we understand now, one, we all have the natural ability to change the brain and body by thought alone. Our thoughts, very powerful. We can change who we are from brain cell to gene. So there's work to be done. Just today I saw this brand new article by Camelia Nord, where she points out that psychological therapy alters the function of the brain region that's responsible with conscious attention and feeling, and it helps us to understand why psychotherapy works and how it transforms the brain. But also, medication also transforms the brain. But it impacts on the section involved in feeling, directly changing our emotions. So we see both work. Both work. Sometimes a way we can combine them. We're in a very strange time now, folks, with coronavirus and the impact on our mental health. So, pandemic fatigue leads to a lot of frustration. But guess what? Frustration oftentimes triggers aggression, verbal and physical. But if you want, you can also rechannel the frustration to trigger creativity. How will you cope with that? What are the signs of this pandemic fatigue we're talking about? You feel stressed. Things you used to manage, having problems with them. Substance abuse, overeating, stop engaging in the things that you found enjoyable, not getting enough sleep, more irritable, more impatient, feeling hopeless about the future. These are all the kinds of issues that impact us now in terms of the mental aspect. But we can get through it. We're able to get through it. And we're seeing the variety of ways that we can use the exercise, interacting with people close to us, looking out for others. And again, we'll discuss some of those in the breakout groups and when we pull back together again. Now, all of this mental health definitely also impacts on crime. If you notice that the surge in the crime rate, one of the things that we knew was going to happen, that during the pandemic, a lot of people get under more stress. Women especially, because their workload becomes double. And domestic violence is one of the main byproducts of this. There's a saying in Jamaica, anyway, Margaret pop, and the pressures that people have at home and at work showing up now. How do we tame the crime monster? All stakeholders have to be involved. Parents must be held accountable. Courts need to be modernized. The group 16 to 25 must either be in an educational institution or a training program. Because we are seeing the saying that again in Jamaica, it says the devil find work for idle hands. That frustration aggression hypothesis. You're blocked towards the goal of what you want to achieve. There's increased arousal, usually anger. Then, whether you use weapons or your hand, the aggressive behavior now accelerates. And this now becomes an offense. What happens? Greater psychopathology among violent offenders. Higher rates of violence perpetuated by and victimized those with mental illness. Emotional dysregulations, not able to control your emotions, again, leads you into a situation interacting with the police, with the courts, and ultimately the prisons. The US data tells us that 56% of state prisoners, 45% of federal prisoners, 64% of jail inmates have mental health problems. We have no detailed figures for Jamaica. We hear about the extreme cases, the people who have been languishing in prison for decades. But then again, some recent data showed us that so many young people having personality disorders, various mental health issues end up in the criminal justice system. What are some of the issues that prisoners are conflicted with? Many of them, up to 21% is suggested, depression, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which we have on the slide on the left. It gives some of the examples, the kind of things that happen as a result of the trauma. Anxiety disorder, personality disorders. All of these ultimately end up in terms of persons being involved in the prison system. So unless we start paying more attention to mental health, the outcome is not good. Mental health and crime. Again, we're seeing the kinds of, from personality disorder to stress-related disorder to substance misuse and antisocial personality disorder, everything from scamming, deception, credit card fraud, benefit fraud, aliases, all of the things that as a result of the issues that are psychological to begin with. But whether you're sophisticated, mid-level, or just low-level criminal, it comes out differently. Yes, mental health impacts crime. What about the area of coping with grief and loss? One of the most common things we talk about are the 5 steps of coping with grief. Many people understand these by now, but guess what? There's no set pace for going through it or set time. But we all have to deal with these, the shock and denial, the anger, the depression and detachment. But ultimately, with time, we do get to the other end. But it's how we get there. What kind of help can we use? What kind of help can we get to do this? Yes, we have ways and means of coping with grief. Take time off. Take a trip. Talk about it with a therapist. Sometimes a hug, a cry, a laugh, a nap, some comfort food, some sweating, some exercise. But we have to find constructive ways of dealing with this. But this thing called hope, ladies and gentlemen, hope, powerful, powerful. It says that you can begin to look ahead to the future with more good times once you have hope. And that is where the problem really comes in, when people, as a result of stressed mental apparatus, losing hope. Hope changes everything. It is said a man can live for about 40 days without food, about 3 days without water, 8 minutes without air, but only for 1 second without hope. But the Bible tells us in the book of Job, and you shall be secure and feel confident. Why? Because there is hope. Can you raise the hope of those around you, of those you interact with? If we're not raising hope, what are we raising? Despair. They say when God brings you into deep water, it's not to drown you, but to cleanse you. See again, cognitive restructuring. Why are you in this grief? Why are you in this situation? To cleanse you. We're encouraged to stop living in the past. Again, the Bible tells us in Philippians 3:13, the one thing I do is to forget what's behind me and do my best to reach what is ahead. Why worry when you can pray? Why? It is very important for us to know that. Prayer has some very important rules of engagement which we can use. It's a conversation with the divine. All conversation involves speaking and listening. But I believe, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we talk too much and listen little. Are you listening for solutions? Prayer is talking to the universe, talking to God. Meditation is listening. Are we listening? Or we talk so loud? But guess what? Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation, Rumi tells us. Book of Samuel reminds us, speak Lord, your servant is listening. Are we listening to the voice of God? Are we listening for the instructions? We were taught very young, about how to pray. But I think many people have lost sight. All of us have an unlimited account with the Universal Bank. Did you know that? By your faith, you make your deposits, so that by your prayers, you can make withdrawal. Now you see where the problem comes in? How do you make a withdrawal with your prayer if you made no deposit with your faith? For me, Isaiah 65:24 makes it very clear. Even before they finish praying to me, I will answer. So why do you think the prayer needs to go on and on and on and on? God is not deaf. Do you know God listens to your heart, not your lips? We look at the parallel wisdom, Lao Tzu, 47 BC, said the same thing that Jesus said in Matthew 6:5. Go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Is that why we're missing the mark? If God was like man, many of us would be charged with fraudulent praying, attempting to obtain blessing by fraud, insufficient funds, stale dated check. There's a way how to pray. People lose confidence in this thing called prayer because you forget some things. The answer is always there. When you ask God for strength, you get difficulties to make you strong. When you ask God for wisdom, you get problems to solve to make you wise. When you ask for prosperity, God gives you brain and brawn to work. When you ask God for courage, you get danger to overcome. When you ask for favors, you get opportunities. All prayers are answered. So we have coping capabilities that we are underutilizing. Some parting words I'd like to share with you to help you to understand that, look, this whole process of mental health, mental wellness, and transforming both self and those around you is indeed possible. We are here to serve and save each other. Proverbs 27:17 reminds us, iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Your path is more difficult when your calling is more critical. But you know when you are chosen. Answer the call. We are called to serve and to save each other. Children live what they learn, master what they live, and remember what you do. What are we doing for them? How are we shaping them? You reap what you sow. There are 21 Bible passages that remind us of this. This is critical. You reap what you sow. What are we sowing? The human spirit is powerful. Jamaican proverbs tells us when trouble take you, pick the shot fit you. But we're also told in a dark time the eyes begin to see. So it means that when things get rough, folks, we get stronger, we get better. Our coping skills are enhanced. Job 33:15-16 reminds us that we be very careful of what you do, what kind of thoughts enter into your mind before you go to sleep. I never watch television, I never watch news, or always steady myself before going down to sleep. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumbering upon the bed, then he opened the ears of men and sealed their instructions. Are we using the tools properly? The forces are evil, never rest. But it's always up to good people to counter the results, or else checkmate. It says all that good people have to do is to do nothing, and evil wins. We all have serious work to do. We're asked to live for a higher purpose, not just the highest bidder. What are we doing to help our neighbor, our community? Help people through the stressful times in every little way we can. We need to stay focused. When you're going through difficulty and wonder where God is, remember, the teacher is always quiet during the test. We're being tested now. We are being tested. These are testing times. Again, we should also understand that without crucifixion, there can be no resurrection for a great comeback. So as we go through this testing time, understand that it is because we're going to get stronger and come out of it way ahead. I wish to remind you that your talents, those are God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gifts back to God. So work is also worship. In everything we do, we can get stronger and help those around us to get stronger. But then as we go through these stressful times, what are you going to believe? There are 72 passages in the Bible from Genesis through to Revelation that says, be not afraid. On the other hand, Hollywood tells us, be afraid, be very afraid. No, come now, people of faith, you know better than that to be afraid. Just a few of them. Genesis 15:1, do not be afraid. Deuteronomy 31, do not be afraid. Joshua, do not be afraid. Psalms, I will not be afraid. Isaiah, do not be afraid. Jeremiah, do not be afraid. It's a constant thing all the way through. Do not be afraid. Fear are stories that we tell ourselves. We need to know better. We need to be stronger. But there's a clear promise. It says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We forget this? Oh, we say this on Sunday, and by Monday we forget. We say, thou prest still before me in the presence of mine enemies. We say, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And by Monday we forget. When people ask how are things going, I say, boy, I drink out of saucer, you know. So what happened to your turn, dog? You know, my cup runneth over. I'm in the one none ways. Do not be afraid. The trillions of cells of your body are listening to your thoughts and your emotions. You can program the mind, transform the body, wellness.
I never made a fortune.
So we can indeed make a big difference. We are capable, we are able to transform ourselves. We can able to cope. Mental wellness is at our fingertips. It's up to us. Because without it, we are in some serious trouble. Thank you very much.
Dr. Semaj. I think it's going to take me another 2 weeks to unpack all of this fabulous material, but I've caught a few that I think I need to hang on to right away. And I hope all of our young people are doing pretty much the same.